The rancher who bought a girl. The desert wind moved across the wild lands like a restless ghost. Sand rolled over dry trails, and the evening sun painted the sky with burning shades of orange and red. In the middle of that endless wilderness rode a lonely rancher named Elijah Boone. Elijah was a hard man. People in the small frontier town of Red Mesa called him Silent Boone, because he spoke little and trusted no one. He owned a large cattle ranch far beyond the town near the rocky desert hills. His life was simple: wake before sunrise, ride horses, repair fences, move cattle, and sleep beneath the cold desert stars. Years earlier, Elijah had once been different. He had a wife named Clara and a little son named Tommy. But fever swept through the territory one terrible winter and took both of them away. Since that day, Elijah's heart became dry like the desert itself. He stopped laughing, stopped singing, stopped caring. The only living soul he trusted was his old horse, Ranger. One dusty afternoon, Elijah rode into Red Mesa to buy supplies. The town was crowded because traders and cattlemen had arrived from neighboring territories. Music played from saloons, gamblers shouted over poker tables, and horses stamped their hooves beside wooden posts. As Elijah walked through the busy street, he noticed a crowd gathering near the old trading yard. A loud man with a black hat shouted, "Strong workers for sale. Cheap prices." Elijah frowned. He hated human trading. Though slavery had been outlawed in many places, cruel men still bought and sold desperate people in hidden frontier towns. He turned away, wanting no part in it. But then he heard a voice. "Please, don't send me there." It was soft, frightened, and trembling. Elijah looked back. Among the frightened workers stood a young girl around 19 years old. Her clothes were dusty, and her dark brown hair hung loosely around her face. Fear filled her green eyes. Two rough men held her arms tightly. "She's stubborn," one trader laughed. "But she can cook, clean, and work hard." The girl looked terrified. Elijah felt something strange inside his chest, something he had not felt in years. Compassion. The trader noticed Elijah's expensive ranch coat and smiled greedily. "You interested, rancher?" Elijah stayed silent. "She owes money after her father died," the trader continued. "No family left. Either someone buys her contract, or she'll be sent south with the mining gangs." The girl lowered her eyes. Elijah knew what happened in those mining camps. Cruel men, endless labor. Most never returned. "How much?" Elijah finally asked. The girl looked up in surprise. The trader named a high price. Elijah hated the idea of buying another human being, but he also knew leaving her there meant destroying her life. Without another word, he paid the money. The trader grinned and handed over the papers. "She's yours now." The girl looked confused and frightened as Elijah untied her wrists. "What's your name?" he asked. "Grace." "Well, Grace," Elijah said quietly, "you're coming with me." The journey to Elijah's ranch took almost 2 days through the desert. Grace barely spoke during the ride. She sat carefully on the wagon seat while Elijah guided the horses across rocky trails and dry riverbeds. At night, they camped beside a small fire. Grace finally gathered enough courage to ask, "Why did you buy me?" Elijah stared into the flames. "I didn't buy you," he answered. "I bought your freedom." She looked confused. "Then, why bring me to your ranch? You got nowhere else to go." Grace remained silent for a long moment. Most men don't help without wanting something in return. Elijah looked at her seriously. "I ain't most men." For the first time, Grace saw kindness hidden beneath his rough appearance. Life at the ranch was difficult but peaceful. The ranch house stood near dry hills surrounded by wooden fences and grazing cattle. A small stable sat nearby, along with a water well and a chicken coop. Grace expected Elijah to treat her like property. Instead, he gave her a clean room, warm food, and freedom. "You can leave anytime you want," he told her the first morning. She blinked in surprise. "Really?" "Yes. But where would I go?" Elijah had no answer, so she stayed. Days slowly turned into weeks. Grace helped cook meals, repair clothes, feed chickens, and care for injured calves. Elijah taught her how to ride horses properly and shoot a rifle for protection. At first, conversations between them were short and awkward. But little by little, silence turned into friendship. Grace discovered Elijah was not cruel, only broken. One evening while fixing a fence together, she asked softly, "What happened to your family?" Elijah froze. For years, nobody had dared ask him that question. "My wife and boy died," he finally answered. Grace saw pain behind his eyes. "I'm sorry." Elijah nodded silently. After that day, something changed between them. They understood each other. Both carried loneliness. Both carried scars. Winter arrived across the desert plains. Cold winds swept through the ranch at night, and snow lightly covered distant mountains. One stormy evening, Grace became seriously ill with fever. Elijah panicked. He had already lost his family once. He refused to lose someone else. For 3 days and nights, he stayed beside her bed, changing cold cloths on her forehead and forcing medicine between her lips. Grace woke weakly during the third night and found Elijah asleep in a chair beside her. His rough hand still rested protectively near hers. She realized then that the lonely rancher cared deeply for her. Maybe more than he understood himself. When she recovered, their bond grew stronger than ever. They laughed more, shared meals together, rode horses through the desert at sunset. For the first time in years, Elijah's ranch no longer felt empty. But peace never lasts long in the Wild West. One afternoon, 3 armed riders arrived at the ranch. Grace turned pale immediately. "It's them," she whispered. The leader stepped forward. He was a scar-faced outlaw named Victor Kane, the same man who had controlled the trading operation in Red Mesa. "You owe me money, girl," Kane sneered. "I paid your contract," Elijah growled. Kane smiled coldly. "That paper means nothing now. I found out this girl's father left something valuable before he died." Grace looked terrified. "What are you talking about?" "A gold map," Kane answered. "Your father hid it before he died." Grace shook her head. "I don't know anything about any map." Kane's eyes darkened. "Then we'll search the ranch." Elijah stepped in front of Grace. "You touch anything here, and I'll bury you in the desert." The outlaws reached for their guns. In seconds, gunfire exploded across the ranch yard. Bang! Elijah fired first, striking one outlaw from his horse. Grace grabbed Elijah's rifle box and reloaded quickly while bullets smashed into wooden fences. Kane cursed loudly. "You should have stayed lonely, rancher." Elijah shot another outlaw in the shoulder. The remaining riders fled into the desert with Kane screaming threats behind them. When silence finally returned, Grace trembled violently. Elijah gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You all right?" She nodded weakly. Then suddenly she began crying. Years of fear, loneliness, and pain poured out at once. Elijah awkwardly hugged her, unsure what else to do. "It's over," he whispered. But deep inside, he knew Kane would return. That night, Grace finally revealed the truth. Before her father died, he had hidden a small metal box beneath the floorboards of their old cabin. Inside was part of a treasure map leading to lost gold hidden somewhere in the western desert mountains. Her father had once ridden with explorers who discovered the gold years earlier. Kane had tortured men searching for that treasure ever since. "I never told anyone," Grace said. "I was afraid." Elijah stared into the fire thoughtfully. "We leave tomorrow." "Leave? Kane won't stop coming." Grace lowered her eyes sadly. "You should let me go." Elijah looked at her sharply. "You think I'm handing you over? I don't want you getting killed because of me." Elijah stood slowly. "Grace, this ranch has been dead for years." He looked toward the dark desert. "Then you came here." Her eyes filled with tears again. "You gave this place life." The next morning, they packed supplies and rode toward the desert mountains to find the hidden gold before Kane did. The journey was dangerous. They crossed narrow canyon trails, freezing rivers, and abandoned mining camps haunted by old memories of violence and greed. During the journey, Elijah and Grace grew even closer. One night beneath the stars, Grace asked quietly, "Do you ever think people can start over?" Elijah looked at her beside the firelight. "Maybe. I want a different life," she whispered. "You got one." She smiled softly. "And what about you?" Elijah paused. For years he believed happiness died with his family. But now, sitting beside Grace beneath the stars, he felt hope again. "Maybe I got one too." After days of searching, they finally reached a hidden canyon marked on the map. Inside the canyon stood an old abandoned church built during the gold rush decades earlier. Beneath the wooden floorboards, Elijah discovered a hidden tunnel leading underground. There, inside dusty crates, lay gold bars untouched for years. Grace stared in shock. It's real. But suddenly, click, gun hammers echoed behind them. Victor Kane emerged from the shadows with several armed men. "Thank you for leading me here," he sneered. Elijah slowly raised his hands. Kane grabbed Grace violently. "You should have stayed in Red Mesa." Grace struggled angrily. Elijah's eyes burned with fury. "Let her go." Kane laughed. "Or what?" Suddenly Grace stomped hard on Kane's foot and elbowed him in the face. Elijah reacted instantly. He tackled one outlaw while gunfire exploded through the tunnel. Chaos erupted. Bullets shattered lanterns. Darkness filled the underground chamber. Elijah fought brutally, protecting Grace while the cave trembled from falling rocks. Finally, Elijah faced Kane directly. The outlaw aimed his revolver. "You should have minded your own business, rancher." Elijah answered coldly, "She is my business." Bang! The shot echoed. Kane stumbled backward, dropping his gun before collapsing into the darkness below the tunnel cliff. Silence returned. Dust floated through broken lantern light. Grace rushed toward Elijah. "You're bleeding." A bullet had grazed his shoulder. "I'm all right," he grunted. Tears filled Grace's eyes as she held him tightly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Elijah gently touched her face. "I ain't losing you too." Grace looked into his eyes. "You won't." And then she kissed him softly. Not out of fear, not out of gratitude, but because somewhere during that long desert journey, two lonely souls had found each other. Months later, spring arrived across the Wild West. The desert bloomed with scattered flowers after rare rains. Back at the ranch, life had completely changed. With the treasure money, Elijah repaired homes in Red Mesa, helped struggling ranchers, and built a small school for orphaned children. People no longer called him Silent Boone. Now they called him Lucky Boone. But Elijah knew it was not luck that changed his life. It was Grace. The girl he once rescued had become the heart of the ranch. Laughter returned to the old house. Music played again during evenings. And for the first time since losing his family, Elijah truly smiled. One evening, they stood together watching the sunset paint the desert sky gold. Grace leaned against him gently. "Do you ever regret buying my freedom?" she teased softly. Elijah smiled. "No." He wrapped an arm around her. "Best thing I ever did." The desert wind moved peacefully across the land as the sun disappeared beyond the western hills. And in that once lonely corner of the Wild West, two broken lives finally became whole again.